You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. Today is also the feast day of the Chair of St. Peter. Yes, there is a chair that has a feast day. Now, today we celebrate the very first Mass that Peter, our very first Pope, said in Rome. Now, remember, Peter, of course, was born in Galilee. He was a fisherman. He was commissioned by Christ to be the leader of the church. He traveled around. He preached in Jerusalem. Eventually, he felt called to go to Rome, and he felt that Christ was telling him to found the church in Rome. So we celebrate the very first Mass that he said, and there is a chair preserved in St. Peter's in Rome that is said to have been the chair from which he presided over that very first Mass. And as you can probably guess, there wasn't a big cathedral built for him to say this Mass. Oftentimes, early Christians met in the catacombs, which were like places of burial beneath the city to say Mass, or places outside of the city, remote places, because of course they had to say Mass in secret. But today we celebrate the first Mass in Rome, which continues to be the center of our church where the Pope lives today. Now, this week on Catholic Sprouts, we are talking about fasting in preparation for Lent. Yesterday, we talked about how fasting is saying no or limiting some sort of sensory pleasure, usually food and drink, or entertainment. So the first reason why fasting is good, we talked about yesterday, and that's because it reminds us of all of those people in the world that do go to bed hungry. If we feel hunger, we can become more compassionate toward them and hopefully more giving. Now, the second reason why, as Catholics, we are very much encouraged to fast is because when we choose to fast, we can become masters of ourselves. We can be free from the slavery that we don't even know we are suffering from. Now, think about a slave. Think about a slave as you can picture it, right? Someone, they have no freedom. They have to work. They have no choice about what they do with their life, right? They don't get paid for what they do. They are just a slave. And each slave, as we picture it, usually has a master. And it is that master that decides what they do, right? The master has taken away their freedom. Well, many of us, when it comes to food and entertainment, we're so used to having these lives full of pleasure, full of good food and movies and video games, that we don't even realize we become a slave to them. Suddenly, when we think, oh, it's Ash Wednesday, the church tells me I need to fast today, we're such a slave to having a full belly or snacking all the time that it's almost impossible for us to do it. We realize that we aren't free. We aren't free. We have spoiled ourselves so much that we have lost our freedom and we have become a slave. Now, remember this, that being free doesn't mean that I just always get to say yes to pleasureful things. Being free means that you can also say no to them. And I think you'll realize if you really try to fast this Lent, that it's really hard to say no. That if we always say yes to ourselves, in some cases we have lost the ability to say no. So we need to discipline ourselves this Lent. We need to work to be able to say no, because Jesus came, he died on the cross to set us free, We were not born to be slaves to anything. And what we need to remember is that very often in life, there's not this person out there trying to enslave us. Instead, Satan is trying very hard to enslave us. He's trying to make us slaves to things that feel good. So we cannot accept sacrifice and suffering. And the rest of this week, we're going to keep talking about reasons why it's good to fast and accepting sacrifice, choosing sacrifice, sacrificing with Jesus. These are even better reasons to fast. But we have to go past this first step. We have to become masters of ourselves, and we only will become masters if we work at it, if we accept fasting. And so, Sprouts, all week you're working on the same challenge. Choose how you will fast during Lent. What will you completely give up or really limit? How will you fast?
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be.
So as you know, Lent is approaching. We have updated our Lenten map to include the 2022 feast days. It is a totally free download that you can print, hang in your home, and not only count down the days to Easter, but also remind yourself that you are on the journey of Lent so that you can keep those Lenten promises like your promise to fast. You can find the direct link to download it in the notes for this podcast episode.
This show is a production of the Spoke Street Media Podcast Network. For more great podcasts, visit spokestreet.com.